Hello, everybody. Johnny Stewart here. Yuval Carmichael, our producer, Nicholas London. Wow, we had a little hiatus there, but welcome back, everybody, and welcome back to the show. This is Truthbusters Live. A lot of things have gone on in the past month and a half since we have been off the air for retooling, had some business matters, sponsorship issues, all good, everything resolved. And, the headlines just keep rolling and rolling. Of course, we're still smack dab in the middle of COVID. I, myself, my entire family got it. Just talking to Cue Ball off the air before the show about it. And, of course, now the cork has finally popped on American civilization. I don't know if it's the fact that we were all stuck inside or just the confluence of what's right is right. The riots now that are really engulfing all the cities all over America. And we also decided that on our initial show back that we would start our 6-part series regarding covering our open conversation about aliens. With us tonight, as always, our esteemed pilot for this crazy airship called the Truthbusters Live, Cue Ball Carmichael. Q, is so good to see your face. Enjoyed our little chat before the show. All pleasantries aside, let's just really spend 5 minutes on just a couple of topics. Give us your mindset on where we're at with the COVID.
Well, the first thing is in doing some research behind the scenes and talking to other people, I realized that there's more to what meets the eye. For instance, doctors were given, if anybody died of the COVID, the hospital, the doctor gets $13,000. If they die in a respirator, they get $33,000. So I don't think we'll ever know the actual death toll from COVID. A lot of fellow officers have died from it. I can tell you that. I have an app where it pops up every time one passes away, and it's just been one after the other. So it has killed a lot of people, but there's also a lot of numbers that really are under scrutiny and probably will be forever. We'll never know the real answers. What I do know is that my partner, Jon Stewart, his wife, his daughter, his father, his father's girlfriend, all went through it and had the COVID. And how, John, how were you through it? How was your family going through the COVID and contracting it?
You're worried about dying, and then got it. And we don't know if I got it from my father, however, me at the car dealership. It's not even funny. My dad's 83 years old and has got more medical issues than you know what to do with. And, when my daughters got it, they really worried me. Thank God we all came through it. But now they're telling us, I've been reading stories from it. It's going to take 10 years off your life to, you're only going to be immune for 6 months. I don't know. All I know is, thank God, I'm alive. My kids and family, my father are alive. Are basically, I told you off the air, our mechanic at the dealership, because they closed down everything and we didn't want to risk anybody, my father and I. So our mechanic became mechanic, sales, receptionist, sold, a ton of cars in April, and we just exploded. And these guys, in fact, when you hand somebody the ball, sometimes they score a touchdown. So that business wise, thank God we were okay. But Q, I'll fling it back to you with saying that we all are saying that we have these COVID lungs. Yeah, I'm overweight. I'm out of shape, but I put about 10,000 steps in a day going to auto auctions and all my trade. So I ain't that out of shape.
That's right.
And I'm telling you, Q, I walk, my wife, my kids, you walk for a minute, you walk up a flight of stairs and you feel like you ran down the block, and it's a little scary. And I'm going to leave it at that. I'm me. I'm not doom and gloom, and
right.
the Italian guilt, but it's that scares me. and I guess I'm gonna have to go for a chest X-ray at some point. So, but we're all alive. Business is good, and I'm talking to you and Nick London. So thank God.
You know, it's fantastic that your mechanic stepped up to the plate. So many times when people, if they were asked outright, well, everything was going well, hey, would you sell some cars? It would be a no. But then he gets put in that situation where he's forced to do it, and people actually prove what they're capable of when those circumstances happen. So hats off to him, man. What a great job.
Yep.
Fortunate to have a guy like that on board, man.
Yep.
Good deal. You know, listen, down here it's the same thing. It's you know, everybody's cautious, everybody's being careful. I mean, I went out with my daughter and a friend today. We still all wore masks out, you know. We still do that just in case. I had some people come up literally at Walgreens yesterday. If I'd have stepped 1 foot back, I would have stepped on this lady's feet. And I turned around and I said, look, it's 6 feet and it's 6 feet for a reason. And the guy goes, well, we don't have it. I said, how do you know I don't have it? You know what I mean? I go, social distancing is actually a law now. You mind stepping back, sir? And they stepped back, you know, and I'm sure they grumbled under their breath, but hey, you know, that's just the way it's supposed to be. And, you know, that's what really stopped a more massive spread of this disease, I think, is people obeying the laws, staying in.
I agree.
Going out when you had to, wearing a mask. I mean, all these things, we talked about it. We talked about it in January, you know, washing your hands. If you can't get sanitizer, take a gallon of water in your car and a bar of soap. I mean, you know, just be cautious. But, you know, that's it. It's great. And it's great that we're going into this multi-part series talking about different sites in the world that they have discovered that are thousands of years old, that were built to incredible tolerances and built with incredible skill, that anybody who's of scientific knowledge knows that it really is impossible to build these things. You know, the Great Pyramid of Giza is a good example. There are 2,100,000 5,000-pound blocks in that pyramid. How in the world did they do that? By the way, if you didn't notice, it's in a desert for water. So, you know, but I think tonight, John, where did we want to start at the beginning, right?
Yeah. No, I've got a little 2-minute statement to lead you into the alien thing. I think it's important. Please. You know, we are a timely topic show. You're a police officer. Let's give me I'm going to give you my 1-minute version, and I'm going to give you the floor, and then we'll flip it back to me, and we're going to start our 6-part for the aliens. You know, my grandfather was chief of police of a small town in Upper Michigan. I've had many friends. My best friend is a police officer. You have no idea, not you, meaning our fans, of the job of putting on equipment, getting out the door, knowing you could die. But you are paid good to well and a pension, and you are trained to not be Jon Stewart on a police call, because Jon Stewart is Barney Fife shooting off his gun, pepper spraying anybody that comes out of the. I mean, you know, that's why I'm not a cop, and I'm not even saying that jokingly. That's why I'm not a police officer. You're trained to have that restraint. You are trained in other ways to subdue someone, and I know that you see a million videos, and it is true, of a suspect on the ground. You think he's unconscious. He pulls out a gun, has killed, you know, hundreds of cops over the past 100, 200 years. Guys on PCP, all of the dangers. I get it. But when you are with your hands on your hips, like Yul Brynner in the 10 Commandments, kind of gleaming almost on a guy after 9 minutes is telling you, I can't breathe. You have him handcuffed. I don't know. You can't get around. I'm sorry. You fucking can't get around that one. There is not a big order of cops in the world. You can't get around that one. And I leave it to you.
Every police officer I know, John, condemns the actions, not just the one act, but the 3 others who were on his back and were holding him down. Every time I've ever had to subdue a suspect and put him in handcuffs, the first thing I brother relax, it's over. You're in cuffs. I have never, ever in my life, and nor can I ignore the fact of what these officers did to this poor man. I find disgusting, hideous, obscene. I think they all four should be charged with murder, and they should all go to jail because they killed a man that was completely 100% defenseless and had already been in handcuffs. It's game over. Look, I've chased guys, and I've caught them, and I've got them down on the ground, and I put them in handcuffs, and I tapped them on the back and said, brother, it's over, man, relax. It's over.
I like that.
How somebody could do this to another human being is unfathomable to me. And what they did is they tarnished the badge of every law enforcement officer in this country and probably the world because of their behavior. And what really is upsetting is not just the guy with his knee on his neck, but not one of the three other officers said, hey, get off him, man, get off him, and called, I mean, first thing I would say is like, dude, get off him. He's done. Relax. And there's no defense for that. And they should be charged with murder and they should go to jail.
I have nothing. I agree 100%. And I hope everything resolves in this country. And, I don't know how stealing a TV from Target gives you, I don't know how that, I don't know how that brings back Mr. Floyd or the disservice that was brought upon him. But, it's human beings and I understand. So with that being said, I am so glad, with Nick, our producer, and UQ, that we are going to spend so much time on this because it's so relevant now. I think the disclosure is happening, and this show has been, kind of sidetracked with COVID, and I think that's a service to our viewers because we do timely things. So. For those who are just joining us, we are going to start our 6-part series, and if it's 7 or 8, so be it. Talking all things aliens, and I wanted to kind of light the fuse of my co-host here, and just bring up 3 things that I think, and of course, this is a working hypothesis or a working roadmap. Q, of 3 things that we should look at weaving into our story over the next six episodes. The number 1 is the jump, the 10,000-year leap that I have read about, where we went from Cro-Magnon and all of a sudden Neanderthal appears. They don't know how Neanderthal got here, folks. This is not my opinion. This is scientists who don't even believe in aliens. No one knows how Neanderthal appeared. And there is this 10,000-year gap. Remember that number that I think, should be woven into this show. Who is responsible for Neanderthal appearing? I'm not a microbiologist or an evolutionary biologist, but, Q, things just don't appear. You just don't, the salamander just doesn't, appear one day. It forms out of some other amphibious life form. So that's number 1. Number 2, in the grip of surviving starvation, the elements, other tribes, disease, the shortness of life, the fear of weather, stars, sun, that you did not understand scientifically. In the midst of all of this, of scratching, eking a life just to feed your family, in your villagers, in your tribe, we are to believe that these people on all of the continents, in a matter of 1,000 years, just decided to build monuments called pyramids with 20-ton and 2,000 and 5,000 and 2-ton and 5-ton blocks. because they were all laying around and figured, instead of having sex with each other, or, instead of exploring, instead of finding new ways to keep meat fresh, let's just go build big monuments for the next 20 years out of stone. I say that tongue in cheek. Oh, and by the way, no one yet scientifically has told me, how did they know in Bosnia what to build? The same thing that they're building in South America, and the same thing that they're building in Egypt. How did in India? I'm asking this question, which I hope we will through. How, before intercontinental travel, did all of these civilizations create the same damn thing? Okay, that's two. Last three before I flip it to my esteemed pal and host. Number three. How many? And I'm getting into my David Icke routine, but I understand where you're coming from. How many 75, 80-year-old freaking men and women in their South Dakota farmhouses wearing flannel with years or months left to live? How many of these freaking people have to look in the camera and tell you, the viewers, and tell us, the American citizens, I went out to a crash site. There were little bodies that were the size of children. They weren't human beings. I'm not an idiot. They weren't human beings. I lifted up the tarp. I saw this. I read the paper this. The 600 pages of the Majestic 12 documents weren't for, those are real, because even a forger won't do 600 pages. How many people, law enforcement, government officials, intelligent human beings, how many people have to pass lie detector tests, physiology responses of whether they're lying or not, have to come out and just tell us there's aliens? That's number three. And we don't believe a 75-year-old man who was a specialist in the Army, that he retrieved bodies on behest of somebody at a air base somewhere. But we believe and I'm not cutting down religion, but yet we believe blindly of a Palestinian person with maybe a second grade education on the stories that are all through the Bible. You don't believe a woman was impregnated by a being that she says, and her doctor says, yes, she was pregnant. But you believe a Palestinian man who said Mary, an angel, waved a wand and she got pregnant. I'm not cutting that down. I'm just
no. It's a
the disparity. The disparity, the bullshit of this whole thing and religion is the third thing that I would like to tackle. So, that being said, folks, let us go back 7,000 years to the time of culture called Sumer and the Sumerians, and a little old thing happened. We were killing animals and eating them, and we were farmers. And then all of a sudden, we had government, language, streets, grid patterns of our cities. We had kindergarten, we had schooling, we had laws, and okay, Q. I'm just, that just appeared overnight.
Well, you're exactly right, and let's go back to the alien thing for a second. I don't know if I can't pronounce his name, but he's the governor of a Russian province in southeast Russia, almost on a China border. He himself has said that he was abducted. Now, here you have a governor, okay, and that governor is saying that I was abducted 20 years ago, taken aboard a craft. This is what I saw. This is who I saw. And not only it corroborates with his story, right, but that also corroborates with other stories around the globe of people who've been abducted who've never met and never talked to each other. So how is that possible? So, I wanted to start with, for a long time, anthropologists thought that we've only walked upright for about 10,000 years.
Right.
However, Göbekli Tepe, they didn't do carbon dating at Göbekli Tepe, which is in southeast Turkey, because carbon dating only works on a C molecule, so you can only go back 6,000 years. Full spectrum.
Well, I didn't. Wait a minute, Q. I didn't know. Can you explain that a little bit? I didn't. Sorry to interrupt you. I know we don't want to do that, but can you explain that? I didn't know. I never knew that.
Yeah, carbon dating is only good for 6,000 years. That's the problem with it. When they can only test the carbon molecule, so it doesn't really give an actual comparison even with a full spectrum kilometer. So what they did was, it was Göbekli Tepe is the way that they were to date that was to go by the amount of settled soil doing layers. That's a much more accurate way to do it. So when they did that, they actually found that Göbekli Tepe is at least 12,000 years old. So that brings into question the size of the structure, the precise carving of the stone back when the only metal that was available was copper, which was too soft to carve rock with. Most of them are basalt or granite. Can't carve it with that. And during the excavation of Göbekli Tepe, which it took them 13 years to only uncover 5% of it.
Well, can you tell people what Göbekli? Can you tell us what it is? Can you? I'm sorry.
Yeah. Göbekli Tepe is a structure that about 18 years ago, a farmer was in his field and he saw a stone and he went to pick it up and he couldn't. It was too big. So he started to dig around it. And once he dug around it, he discovered that it was a large piece of what looked like a structure. So at that point, he contacted the authorities. They sent out an archaeology crew, and they started to uncover it. And in 13 years, they've only uncovered 5% of it. But they're seeing these unbelievable carvings in stone and these large stones that weigh tons and tons and tons that are put together in such a way that the tolerance from end to end on a 20-foot stone is only 2/1000ths of an inch. The same thing they found in Luxor, Egypt, with the statues and the walls there. Today, by modern tools today, in 2020, you could do that. Before 2000, you couldn't do that. Before 1950, you couldn't do that. So these structures, instead of carbon dating, they're doing layer dating. And the layer date shows a minimum of 12,000 years. Some scientists speculate that this may be as old as 100,000 years. And ironically, the builders filled it in and covered it up before they left. So they had to do the layers on the outside dirt. Yeah, that's the question of the ages. Why? And number one, where did they get the technology to make these incredible carvings and cut these stones to such precise edges that there's only 2/1000ths of an inch different from end to end on these stones? It's impossible, And so Göbekli Tepe is giving an entire new perspective from an archaeological and anthropology standpoint that perhaps we're wrong saying man has only walked upright for 10,000 years, because obviously the structure proves different. So it's very interesting, and I follow it on a regular basis because every week and every month they're discovering more and more. Like I said, in 13 years, only 5% is uncovered. So there's this massive altar, this massive monument, this massive area where people gathered thousands of years ago for some reason. And it's interesting because Göbekli Tepe, any of the other, as we know, like Chichen Itza, Stonehenge, any of the other structures similar, they go in a clockwise pattern. Göbekli Tepe was built in a counterclockwise way. Why that is, they have no idea, because every other ancient structure they've uncovered was built in a clockwise way. This is built in a counterclockwise way. So it makes absolutely no sense. And surely, in the age of hunter-gatherer, in the middle of the Turkish desert, in the southeast corner.
Thank you.
There's really no way, because, it's like, I'll give you an example. The Great Pyramid of Giza, they said that was built in 20 years. Here's the statistics. If that was built by man in 20 years, they would have had to cut the blocks. They weren't from there. Transport those blocks and place a block in every 7 seconds for 20 years.
Oh, that can be done.
Yeah. You couldn't do it now.
I mean, a human being hearing that statistic has got to be like, I'm sorry, folks. We start talking about this in my brain. Q. You talk about this with Gobekli Temple. How do I say that?
Gobekli
Tepe. Folks, search this. I wish we will in the future show pictures as we're talking. They're H blocks, and they are 3D. I can't even explain it. They're cut out, so they're like raised lettering. And why would you make an H in 50 of them? And why would you destroy it and bury it? And you asked the villagers, and they said the visitors, they destroyed it. And they also said it was built in a night. And what was again, the hunter-gatherer? What's the purpose? 12,000 years ago. I think it's important that we give each other, that we all give like 4-second pauses of reflection, because it's like I don't even know what to say. And is that the site, Q, where it's got drill marks?
Yeah,
folks,
that's one of
there's
the
like a line of drill marks. The drill marks are perfectly aligned, and they're made. You have to have steel, and they're all the same. And, come on.
Well, interestingly enough, I saw a scientific demonstration of one of the faces.
Okay.
And what they did is they put 3D simulation on the right side of the face.
Okay.
And they flipped it upside down and put it on the left side, and it was 1/1000th of an inch off in the center. 1/1000th of an inch. That's 20 times finer than a human hair. That was the difference in one side to the other. To think that somebody 2,000-3,000 years ago took copper, the only metal which is very soft, pure copper is very soft, and they went in there and carved this. And the interesting thing that I find with Gobekli Tepe in Luxor, Egypt, which we'll get to next week, is they have found these structures. They have found human remains, but they've yet to find one tool that carved them. No tools. No tools. So, you know what it does is when you look into this stuff, you really, as you look at the structures and the places that we're going to talk about in the next 6 weeks, hold your opinions, people watching, until the end of the series, because there's so much of this evidence around the world of these massive buildings that were drawn made between 2,000 and 12,000 years ago, whose architecture is equal to the architecture of today, but its carvings are flawless and meticulous to the point of impossibility by human hand. And that's the thing that leads almost every researcher to understand a couple things. They weren't built by the people of the time, number one.
Nope.
Number two, most of these structures are more visible from the air. All of these structures represent, in their name, they represent the word star. Somewhere in their name, in their language, is the word star.
I didn't know that.
Oftentimes, star people, star gods. Star is referenced in the name of every one of these. And that's kind of interesting because, think about 2,000 years ago with nothing for entertainment. People would lay there and watch the sky at night. And many of these structures are aligned to attract the light of the winter solstice, the summer solstice, to get that light to go through a certain opening and shine light onto a figure of a person carved in there on June 21st or December 21st. Exactly. Not one day short, not one day longer. So imagine if you're building that 2,000, 3,000 years ago, and you don't get it right this year for the solstice. Now you have to redo it and wait an entire year to see if it works next year.
Oh, they did that.
Yeah, it's impossible.
Nick, my brain's hurting. Sorry. I know.
And the other thing is you'll find about 80% of these structures also are lined up not just for the summer and winter solstice, but they're lined up to the constellation Pleiades, which is interesting because that's the furthest constellation that can be seen with the human eye from Earth.
Okay.
And only certain times a year. So for me, it's mind-boggling. But if you look at Göbekli Tepe, I mean, it's not far from Samaria, which was in Iraq. It's very close. But, these are societies that there was not even one day there wasn't a language, and the next day there was a complete language, a complete alphabet, and able to write. You have to look at it and go, how could that happen? What are the options? The options are, first, maybe somebody traveled back in time with a machine and showed them how to do it.
Right.
Probably not realistic.
Not realistic.
The other thing is they had help from outside technology, advanced technology, to be able to do this. And that technology could only come from one place, and it's not on Earth. And that's all the scientists, all the people that study these, all come up with the same conclusion, that they had assistance with someone or some person or some being with incredible intelligence and technology to be able to create these structures.
Yeah, I am so glad that you inserted Göbekli Tepe first, because you're right. It was about 4,000 or 5,000 years before Sumer. It's funny. I'm so glad you brought up the solstice, folks. On almost every continent, everyone's got this fetish, I would call it, this proclivity, this obsession with the winter and summer solstice. Why? They all had the same newsletter. So again, before intercontinental travel, everyone's obsessed with the winter and summer solstice. And Hugh, what a great analogy and metaphor about getting it wrong, starting over. I mean, and I think it's funny too, that every culture from the oldest culture, which they think is either China or Aborigine Australia, to India, to Africa, Mesoamerica, North America, folks, every culture has the same freaking story of creation. Someone came from the skies or the heavens, came down here. They didn't kill us. They either had sex with us, and I'm not joking, and they taught us, and they gave us knowledge, and they went away. There was, and we're going back to you. It was a very, very interesting story. A researcher, a anthropologist, was hearing about a tribe in Africa, and there's again the similar story is the Aborigines in India and China, and that they had this ceremony. This is a great story, and I want your take. They had the ceremony celebrating the hopeful return of the teachers, of the gods. And he goes to Africa. I think this was in the 20s or 30s or 40s, 1930s, 40s. And he sees the ceremony. The chief or the main person of the ceremony has a straw outfit on, made of straw and husk, painted white. He looks like the Michelin Man, like an astronaut. And the guy, I'm sorry, it was during the astronaut age, so it was 50s, 60s. And he said, my God, these people 10,000, 12, 15,000 years ago saw astronauts came to this village. How could you get this how would you get this visualization of a man in a big white puffy suit? it's just one thing after another like that, the repetitive story of creation of someone coming down. We have the same story. It's called Christianity. But sorry, Q, go ahead.
Well, there's another thing with Göbekli Tepe that makes it strange. It has a calendar lineup that's different than any ancient structure out there.
Okay.
But if you go back 70,000 years, there was a crustal displacement that shifted all the land masses, and that's the theory about the North Pole moving. And scientists can tell that this crustal displacement, or the movement of the tectonic plates in a massive way, happened approximately 70,000 years ago.
Okay.
If you move Göbekli Tepe's calendar to that position, it is exactly correct.
Oh, come on. I never heard of that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Their calendar is off just enough where if you go back and scientists recreate the Earth 70,000 years and one day ago, before the crustal displacement and the massive shift in tectonic plates, Göbekli Tepe's calendar is perfectly aligned, just like every other civilization's ancient ruins who are perfectly aligned for a calendar year. Yeah. So this has led some scientists to believe that Göbekli Tepe could be as old as 250,000 years. If that doesn't blow your mind, nothing will.
Well, I never heard about that. Thank you for. I honestly, I'm being sincere. Thank you for. I never heard about that calendar thing.
Yeah, this has been, a lot of information. It just like the government suppresses information about aliens with us. A lot of scientists want this information suppressed until they can make an official announcement that yes. This count. So it's not an official announcement, but archaeologists have said publicly and have printed. I'm looking at it right at me. That if you move this back to where the tectonic plate shift was 70,000 years ago, you have Göbekli Tepe's calendar perfect, just like the Mayan calendars, like all the other calendars. In other words, with that, a year is 365 days. That's how they do the winter solstice, and the summer solstice, and how to align these not only with the solstices but also with the constellation Pleiades. So if you move this in that position, not only is the calendar correct, but the main points line up with the constellation Pleiades.
Wow.
It's mind-blowing, man.
That's why you're the host of the show. That's awesome. No, I mean,
this is your baby. I'm the co-host.
I never heard that.
Yeah,
is that also the site where they figured they had and if I'm wrong because we're just spitballing, the rock that was fashioned for this site did not come from that area, and they had to use log, but trees don't grow up that high. Is this the same?
That's the theory with a couple other places.
Okay.
Including Luxor, Egypt, which we're going to get to next week, which is a pretty amazing story. Right. So these same anthropologists and scientists and archaeologists are also thinking that because the calendar lines up identical with 70,000 years ago with the shift in the plates, that these ruins, these ancient ruins, only 5% being uncovered in 13 years. They think that by the time they uncover the entire thing, they're going to be able to actually get layer dating, and their approximation is that this was built around 102,000 years ago. Now, we were still walking on all fours back then. So
no, you're a liar. You're a liar. You don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I'm making it up. Here's the problem is that takes Darwin's theory and every other anthropologist's theory, and it blows it away.
Completely.
So they're the ones that are the most scared because everything they've been teaching and taught for the last 150 years is now no good. It's completely gone. History has changed. Everything's changed. Man has been walking upright for 100,000 years, and they don't know how to deal with that or put that out there, because it changes every anthropology and every archaeology book in every classroom in every country in every college or university. It all has to get thrown out and they have to start over, and that scares mainstream fundamentalists. It scares them to death. It's just like, look, information is suppressed. We know that the alien information has been suppressed for the White House due to Project Blue Book, due to the Majestic 12, all these covert organizations that, they said, well, at the end, I remember at the end of one of them, John, and you can correct me which one it is. It was a 7 to 12-year study. I don't know if it was Blue Book or if it was Majestic 12, but at the end they said there's no apparent evidence to warrant the validation of aliens. Well, why would the government spend all these years and all this money and all these resources and all these people if at the end there was going to be no evidence of aliens? That's the most ridiculous thing.
Wait a minute, I'm going to do this again. I'm going to do this about 70 times in the 6-part series. I wanted to just say something here that before everyone calls in, and this is, in my opinion, part of the COVID. I call it COVID brain. I am sorry. I want to say something right here. Gobekli Tepe is the T's in the circle with the animals on them that they dug up. I have been talking also about the H, it's not Machu Picchu. I forget what other. We will obviously get to that in another episode. So don't scream, don't yell in. I'm sorry. When they dug that up, Q, there was something about the animals that were engraved on every one of the. They're like T structures.
They're not indigenous. Those animals are not indigenous to that area of the world. They had a wild boar.
Yes.
There's no wild boar in Turkey. There never has been.
No, yes, there was. You don't know what you're talking about. Yes, there was.
There's giraffes. There's giraffes. There was no giraffes ever there. It's not Africa. How would somebody know that animal existed 12,000 years ago or 102,000 years ago? There's only one. There's two explanations to me. One is scientists have greatly underestimated the massive tectonic shift of 70,000 years ago.
Okay.
And there were lush jungles and those animals roamed Turkey, and the shift of the tectonic plates changed the position. So it also changed the environment and the weather conditions, and those animals died off.
Makes sense.
Or somebody from above gave them a ride somewhere, or somebody from above had said, carve this. I saw it. They showed him a picture of it and said, carve this. I've seen this. This is a great animal. Carve that in here. Because those animals, many of those animals have never been they've never done up any fossil remains or any bones or have any even inkling that those animals ever roamed in Turkey.
Yeah, and again, I love you as a co-host because you like spark my brain, folks. That's another thing that has bothered me with the ancient alien theory of people laughing at it. I'm sorry, you drew, you carved, you painted what you saw. We did not have the full brain capacity and all of this external stimuli to invent boogeymans and creatures. So when they took the time to weave a big hairy creature with long arms on a basket in Northwest, North America, Native American Indians, it's not because they dreamed it; they saw it. The cave paintings in France is what cavemen saw. So that is so true. You're not going to pull a giraffe out of your ass if you've never seen one and carve it. You're going to carve what you saw. And especially if it's maybe, like you said, the got to ride somewhere theory. especially if it's something that you saw somewhere else that you've never seen before. Of course, you're going to go and memorialize it, so to speak. Great point, by the way. Great point.
And John, I would like to do a little demonstration for our viewers.
Okay.
I'm going to hold up a coin.
Okay.
It's a nickel. Would you give me $5 for it?
No.
Now, when I tell you that it's a 1903 Buffalo nickel in mint, uncirculated condition, worth at the coin shop over $6,000. Now, would you give me $5 for it?
Absolutely.
Based on additional information, people will change their minds. I'm asking the viewers to hold up, listen to the whole series. At the end of the 6-part series, based on additional information, I guarantee you that you will change your mind exactly like John just did. But you need the information so you can make an intelligent decision.
Yeah.
It's easy to say, oh, aliens don't exist. Well, when we give you all the information that we have to give you, we give you these areas, these dates. We show pictures of these sites. You go and research these sites and see what archaeologists and anthropologists say. And then at the end, with all this additional information, you may, in fact, change your mind. Because before I happen. There's no such thing as coincidence. I mean, these things happen. You look at it from this aspect. Let's say they abducted that guy and they gave him a little DNA boost. And he rises up through the ranks and he eventually becomes a governor of a well-respected governor with an incredibly flawless and clean background. His integrity has never been in question. And one day he announces he was abducted by the aliens. Don't you think that was probably their plan, is to be able to get this guy who's going to be in a position of authority and power with great integrity, and then have him announce to the world that he was indeed abducted?
Yeah.
I mean, that's, to me, that's
same theory on Jesus.
Coincidence.
You know, impregnate Mary biologically, test tube wise, or, you know, that she said, you know, something came into her room and she was pregnant, and tinker his DNA. And I know Jesus in Christianity caused a lot of death. It's also caused a lot of people a lot of comfort. So
yeah,
I don't disagree with your theory at all, one bit.
And you know, there's a great show on TV, John. It's called Skinwalker Ranch, and it used to be Robert Bigelow's the aerospace guy. He sold it to Brandon Fugel, who's a multimillionaire in Utah.
I'm watching it.
And
I'm watching it.
Yeah, so you know, Brandon sent a team of the top scientists in the country who don't believe in stuff they can't see, feel, or touch.
Right.
And they're out there and they're baffled by what's going on. Baffled.
Yeah, I missed a couple episodes. Can you, not to get off track, I missed a couple episodes. And yeah, there is any conclusions yet? Because 2 weeks ago they were just like, there was something in the sky that isn't coming from a man-made machine, but it's up there.
Well, if you haven't seen the one where the
presidents, I don't know.
If you haven't seen the one where the cow died from stress, and it sat there, they found it right away, they penned it off and left it, and it's in the middle of the hot Utah sun, and in a period of 2 weeks, while they filmed the location, not one vulture, not one predator, not one animal touched the carcass of this cow, which is unheard of. And as they filmed it, because they have cameras everywhere now, when the cow fell down, an object appeared in the sky. The object appeared to be a large metallic disc. And they got a picture of that disc. While the cow's there, the cow falls down and the disc moves within an instant, 1/16 of a frame, because that's what they're shooting in. It moved geographically approximately a quarter of a mile to the left, like that. And they have it all in film. So you got to go on demand and catch up on your issues, because they actually caught an alien craft over the cow just as the cow dropped from stress. Crazy. And there's no explanation.
You know, you said something about Göbekli Tepe, 150, 200,000 years that it could have been created. And I think that just blows people's minds. Yet there are scientists, Q, that say, don't quote me, but, there might have been civilization here 100 million years ago. That because of like you said, tectonic shifts, asteroid impacts, and conflagrations, and that just society gets wiped out. It starts over again, and I want you to talk about your feelings on this, where they found a complete skeleton in a vein of coal. Can't believe they got that word vein. A vein of coal that has not been touched, about 100 million years old. No way to plant the skeleton. Impossible. So they found a hammer in coal.
Saw that.
They think 100 to 200 million years old was the coal. They're finding the spears in Africa. They're finding mines, like metal mines in Africa that geologically, remember, with the scientists, only what we can prove, the mines in Africa, folks, are 50 million years old. I mean, what is the big deal? What are you so afraid just to say, hey, there's been people here a long freaking time. We get wiped out. A couple of people live. Maybe the aliens help us repopulate. I don't know. What is
Well, you know,
this cognitive dissonance? But I want you to comment on the stuff in the rocks in the 50-year-old mind.
Well,
50
first
million.
off, if they'd found him 100,000 years from now, he would have been a diamond. But
yeah,
well, here's the thing: is there's proof that man has walked upright for a lot longer than we thought. Finding that hammer, I mean, there's no question that there was working tools tens of thousands of years ago, 100,000 years ago, a million years ago.
Yeah.
But the problem is everybody in the anthropology, scientific community, archaeology community has basically subscribed to Darwinism. So what's happened now is that's how all the books are written. This will change the face of society, the earth and the science so drastically that everything has to be rewritten. Everything has to be redone because everything we have studied for the last 150 years is completely incorrect.
Yeah, it's like
that is a massive financial undertaking.
Yeah, you're right. It's like Graham Hancock. It's like Graham Hancock said.
Yeah, if I'm getting ready to go to college and pay my $300,000 worth of tuition at a really good school to be an archaeologist or an anthropologist, and this news comes out, I might just take business.
Yeah,
you know?
it's like Graham Hancock.
It's big financially.
Alien researcher says, I'm trying to just convince scientists that 12,000 years ago there was a worldwide, flood, or a conflagration where society was almost wiped out 12,000 years ago from a meteor strike. He goes, forget trying to convince a scientist. Why is there a hair found in coal that's 200 million years old? He goes, I'm just trying to convince scientists that, that a worldwide disaster happened 12,500 years ago. I understand the frustration, and you're right. Nobody wants to go against the grain.
Let's leave it with this. Maybe we're just the zoo for aliens, and then when they make a model of us, they don't like it. They create a massive flood, wipe us all out, or a massive virus, wipe us all out, and then they start over with new material. Think about that for the next week.
Well,
it's just about that time, Johnny, to sign off. It went quick.
It's your day. Oh, I'm so excited for the next coming episodes. Q, awesome new information on Gobekli Tepe. Really, stuff that I didn't even know, and I really appreciate that. I wanted to thank Nick London, one of the greatest producers on the internet. It's so great to be back. Truthbusters Live. Catch us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple. Thank you to Q-Ball Carmichael, my esteemed, the pilot of this crazy show. Will Jones, the intern, all of our researchers. Keep your cards, letters, internet emails coming. Nick answers all of them. And I am Johnny Stewart. Thanks, everybody, for being back. Truthbusters Live. We'll see you next Sunday. Thank you.
See you next week, guys.